everyone. Welcome back to the GRC show. I'm sorry for my sore throat, but here we have a very special guest with us to talk about the Pakistan versus West Indies test match. The first one that ended up in a very decisive result within 2 days, which was the record shortest test match to be played on Pakistani soil that gave a result. And then we're also going to give a little preview of the second test match that is going to start on the 25th of January. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. A pleasure to be on. I don't know if I can bring any cheer about the West Indies. I suspect that we're going to see something relatively similar in the second test, but happy to be on and give some insight from our perspective.
No, we would love to have an insight because West Indies and Pakistan in the WTC cycle of 2023 to 2025, these are the bottom two teams. One is at 8th, one is at 9th. So neither of the teams have had any remarkable games in this cycle. But this one especially was very record breaking in a very weird way because this was the shortest test match that gave a result. West Indies faced a total of 371 balls, and then the entire match was like 1064 deliveries that gave a result, and it ended in 2 days. So is this a new low for West Indies, because we haven't seen anything remarkable from West Indies, not just Pakistan but West Indies as well?
Do you know, that's a really good question. Is it a new low? I think if I'm honest with you, I was more concerned about the second test defeat to Bangladesh at the end of 2024 than I am about this defeat to Pakistan, simply because I knew what was coming. And I think any rational West Indian fan knew what was going to happen in Pakistan. It was very clear well before the start of the first test what kind of pitch was going to be prepared. And the reality of the situation is the squads that the West Indies have gone to Pakistan with is too inexperienced. And I don't mean inexperienced in terms. I don't just mean inexperienced in terms of number of test matches, but inexperience in those type of conditions. Most of that batting lineup, their test match experience thus far has been away in Australia, home versus South Africa, away in England, and home versus Bangladesh. None of those matches would prepare you for the type of track that they've faced in Pakistan. So it's inexperience on two different levels, and I just think at times in that first test, it was like child's play for Sajid and Noman. Like it wasn't even. There were times where I was like, this isn't even difficult for them. Like, and this is why I don't buy this idea, like this narrative that was kind of spread after the first test, when it was kind of like, oh, well, Pakistan are only preparing pitches like this. How does this help them in the future? A good team adapts and finds a way to put pressure back on Pakistan. Doesn't mean they'll win, but they find a way to try and put pressure on. And I think what we saw was that West Indies just don't have the tools, certainly in their batting. The bowling's a different matter. They don't have the tools in their batting to be able to compete effectively on wickets like this.
You mentioned the conditions before we get into the lineup of the West Indies. So this is pretty new for us Pakistanis as well. We hadn't won a home test for I think 2 or 3 years, right? Up till that first England test where they scored 800 something, and then Pakistani management was like, okay, we need to do something, and then that rank turner in Multan was prepared that really changed the game for Pakistan. And after that, there have been two, and this was the third test match that was played on Pakistani soil. Two against England, and then this first one against West Indies. And then the rank turners they were specially curated to be spin friendly, but I would say, quote unquote, they were criticized for being unfair. But do you think this is a viable long term solution, or do you agree with Shan Masood, as he said, the Pakistani captain, that we would do anything that we need to do to get 20 wickets?
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with Shah Masood. I think it's too easy for people to turn around and say, what do Pakistan gain out of this? I think everyone has to remember that Pakistan haven't just created these pitches just for jokes. They haven't been winning. So like someone, I had a lot of people message me after the defeat saying, why don't West Indies create pitches like this? And my kind of glib response to that was, we're not even good enough at any one thing to be able to say, right, this pitch will definitely help us. So I have no issue whatsoever with Pakistan producing a pitch that they believe will help them. That's what Test cricket's about. You're supposed to be the whole point of Test cricket is you're supposed to go to other countries and experience quote unquote alien conditions and prove you're the best in all conditions. So I've got no problem with it whatsoever. If Pakistan believe this is a winning formula, more power to them. Someone sent me their 2025 to 2027 World Test Championship cycle. I think they're I think I can't remember. Is it like Sri Lanka at home, South Africa at home, and somebody else who I can't remember right now? And I looked at those fixtures. And was like, yeah, Pakistan should win those. And
Yeah,
then I looked at the away ones. It's like Bangladesh away, England away, and someone else. And arguably, I looked at those six fixtures and I said, based on this strategy that Pakistan have, they have every right to look at their next World Test Championship cycle and say this strategy could get us far. And who could blame them for that? It's about winning things. So you've got to do what you believe gives you the best advantage of winning.
yeah, and it has worked for Pakistan. The bowling, especially, we are still struggling with the batting because up till these past few years, our batting revolved around Babar Azam, and he hasn't really been in his form that he used to be. So we are struggling with the batting department as well, and just like that, West Indies has as well. But we will talk about the upside of the West Indies lineup. Don't you think the bowlers did well? I think Jumel Varkan, he took a 10 for which in any conditions doesn't matter, spin friendly and a spinner is taking wickets or it's a flat wicket, whatever it is, 10 wickets is a remarkable feat.
Yeah, 100%. I think Jamel Warrican. I've got a lot of time for Jamel Warrican. He's a model pro. I think this was his 18th Test match. He's had to wait a lot on the sidelines, almost like the ugly stepsister. Sounds like a harsh statement to make, but what I mean by that is he's not the fashionable spinner. He's not the he's not Akil Hussain. He's not Gudakesh Multi. He's not the guy that everyone's going to talk about, but he is the guy who works on his game and finds a way to get the job done. And actually, you look at Jamel Warrican's returns and you look at what Multi didn't do, and you just think to yourself, if Multi had been on form, this could have been a closer match. Multi struggled to find the right pace and length for this wicket. And so, in essence, what you ended up having was one spinner bowling well, Kevin Sinclair doing okay, and Gudakesh Multi completely off form. And I like the fact that you mentioned Pakistan's batting because Pakistan's batting was actually equally brittle. It's just that not all of our bowlers contributed in the same way that Pakistan's bowlers contributed to the piece. So 100% salute to Jamel Warrican and Jaden Seals in that first innings because we were all
Yeah,
told before this test match, this is a spinner's wicket, this is a spinner's wicket, this is a spinner's wicket. And actually that opening spell that Jaden Seals bowled on day one showed that actually if you're just a good bowler, you can find a way. So as much as I was at the start downplaying West Indies' chances, there for the optimistic West Indies fan, there was enough in that first test with the ball to suggest, well, we can bowl our way into the game. It's just do the batters have enough about them to do anything if they're given an advantage?
no, absolutely. I was going to mention Seals, who took 3 wickets in the first inning, and it was a very, very spin friendly, as I was saying, because on Pakistan's bowling side, all wickets were shared between 3 spinners. it was Abrar, Noman, and Sajid. So for a seamer to take wickets on this pitch, it was obviously impeccable. So yeah, if on the bowling side, I would say it was pretty head to head between West Indies and Pakistan. But when it comes
Mm.
down to the batting lineup, apart from, if you take from the Pakistani batting lineup, if you take away the Rizwan and Saud's inning in the first innings, their partnership, there's really not much to talk about on the Pakistani side either. But even on the West Indies
Mm.
side, they had 2 days to score like what 250 runs, and then one of the batters, Anthony, scored 55, and then apart from him, the top six couldn't even get into the double digits. Like barely they got into double digits.
Yeah, I think fundamentally we're talking about so it's Mikael Louis is 23 years old, and the issue is for someone like Mikael is he's still learning his craft. Um, you then have Casey Carty, who's only in his, I think this is his fifth Test match. He barely averages over 30 in first class cricket. He might not even average 30 actually. You've got Kavem Hodge, who barely averages over 30 in first class cricket. You've got Ali Cathnays, who's seen as like the star of the batting lineup. He must be on his like 13th Test match now, but he's only averaging like 27. You've got Justin Grays, who barely averages 30 in first class cricket. And I say all this to just point out that it doesn't matter what side you are in the world. If you have players in your top six who barely average 30, in first class cricket or in domestic cricket, you can't realistically expect them to suddenly play game winning innings on a certainly not on a regular basis in the highest level of the game. Eventually they will resort to their mean. And arguably, whatever you are in your domestic cricket, you're going to be probably slightly under that in Test cricket because it's a higher level. So again, the argument is that you can't even. This is going to sound ridiculous, but you could argue that they're not even underperforming, and actually they're performing to their requisite level, given where they're coming from domestically. So that doesn't mean, though, to put that in perspective, that doesn't mean that West Indies can't shock Pakistan in the second test, but more the point is that any shock that the West Indies batting lineup put up is an exception r- rather than the rule. So we saw a shock in Australia, and then that was at the start of 2024 when we won at the Gabba. But then we didn't win again for the rest of the year until we played Bangladesh right at the end of the year. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that West Indies could beat Pakistan in the second test, but it wouldn't necessarily mean then that West Indies will go on to beat anybody else. Like every team can pull off that one shock result, but the best teams or the good teams are able to show continuity in their performances, and West Indies just simply aren't there.
Yeah, and so for this test cycle, this is going to be the last match for Pakistan as well as West Indies. They're way out of the WTC race. So West Indies also don't play until June again, right? Okay. So
Yeah,
for the
against
next match,
Australia, yeah.
what changes are you anticipating for this second test, and which will be the last test for the cycle?
So funny, I'm gonna record something on this in possibly even today, maybe tomorrow. There are several ways West Indies could go with this. Having seen what Pakistan have done, there's an argument that they don't play Jaden Seals. Now that sounds ridiculous, given how Jaden Seals bowled in the first Test match, and given how Pakistan found him difficult to deal with. You should play your premier pacer. However, given how brittle the West Indian batting lineup was, there's an argument to say that the guy who's in pole position would be Amir Jangu. So if there is a change for the West Indies team for the second test, it's Amir Jangu who's coming in. The only question is who's he come in for? And like I say, the outlandish idea or radical idea is you copy Pakistan. You basically don't. I mean, I know Pakistan had a pacer, but how many overs did he bowl? Was it one in the whole match, right? So you copy Pakistan and basically don't even bother playing a pacer because you're not going to use one and bring in a batter instead. Or which is probably more likely, they will remove Casey Carty, who's been struggling since his Test debut, and number 3, and they bring in Amir Jangu, and then they move the order about to fit Jangu in. But I would be shocked if Amir Jangu isn't playing in the second Test match. That's the only change I foresee.
And on the Pakistani side, are you anticipating something or something that you're generally looking forward to?
I would expect Pakistan to play the same team. I don't see why they'd change. The margin of victory, it was big, but it wasn't big enough to justify resting someone, if you catch my drift. Like it wasn't comfortable enough to say, oh, we can rest such and such because we're gonna win anyway. Like they're not in that position. So I think what I'm intrigued to see is obviously I'm gonna what like Sajid is a really good bowler. Noman's good as well, but Sajid is box office. Like you want when Sajid's on, you want to watch him bowl. Like there's something about him,
Yeah.
whether it's the celebration, whether it's the moustache, something about him makes him like I need to watch this. So to me, he's a box office bowler. He makes things happen. So I'm excited. I'm not excited because he's likely to take 10 wickets. But I do like watching him bowl because I think he brings certain cricketers force you to watch the cricket, and I think he's one of them. You know that something's going to happen when he's got the ball in his hand. So I'm intrigued to watch him go about his work again, and to see how he adapts if, and it's a big if West Indies actually have a plan for him. So it'll be interesting to see how that battle goes if West Indies have a plan.
Hopefully, it's a good battle between the bat and ball equally, and West Indies and Pakistan both put up a great show because both teams, regardless of winning or losing, they're big entertainers. Both of West Indies
Mm.
and Pakistan. So, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us on such a short notice. And it was lovely talking to you. And hopefully, we can talk again in the future.
Yeah, most definitely. If West Indies win, get me back on again. but if we lose, it was good talking to you, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you guys for
But
watching.
thank you very much, much appreciated.
And I'm sorry for my voice again. Hopefully next time I'll have a better voice to talk.
No problem. It was all good. It was all great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much.